What's up, everybody? It's John Dickinson, and it's Greg Silver, KNBR, the sports leader, live stream. It's Dubs OT with JD and Greg Silver here tonight on the sports leader. Full disclosure, I'm in Vegas. Hi, Greg. Welcome. I'm in Vegas. I am covering Super Bowl 58 for KNBR between the 49ers and the Chiefs. And so Dubs OT taking on a little bit of a different vibe here during the course of this week with the games in Brooklyn, Philadelphia, and Indiana. But we're going to be doing this after every game. I did get a chance to catch significant chunks of the game live tonight and also did kind of a speed watch back over the course of the last hour. But the Warriors did pick up a victory in Brooklyn, 109-98, the final. Ugly first half. Big third quarter. Warriors do enough down the stretch to hold off the Nets. 109-98 is the final. So Golden State now 22-25. Just some things that I bookmarked right off the top. And, a couple of big headlines tonight based on how Steve Kerr finished the ball game. But Brandon Podziemski got the start for Andrew Wiggins. Brandon Podziemski played well as he scored 15 points, 11 boards, and really being a connector for the Warriors. Didn't make a three, still kind of struggling with the jump shot and the perimeter shot, but he was impactful. Jonathan Kuminga gets to the free throw line. Teams just have a hard time defending him without fouling him. Stephen Curry, 29 in this game. And a lot of really good things for the Warriors after an ugly first half where they couldn't hit the three ball. And the Warriors win on a night where they are just 4 of 22 from three overall. How do you do that? Well, 72 points in the paint for the Warriors in this one, 72-38 Dubs in the paint. And Steve Kerr finishing the game with Guy Santos. Now, that is not something, Greg, that I would have thought that I would have seen during the course of this season. Guy Santos in a closing rotation of a game that could have gone either way, and Klay Thompson not. I know he spoke to that after the ball game. It's a major headline because Klay's struggles of late have become a major headline again. But all in all, I know you were locked in more on this game from start to finish than I was. But those are just kind of the general observations early. We'll keep the stream going here for about 45, 50 minutes. We'll re-rack it as a podcast if people do want to weigh in the comments. With the trade deadline looming here now, under 72 hours to go until that deadline on Thursday afternoon. How does this game relate to the deadline, and how does this game relate to the Warriors trying to salvage their season? Those are always the questions that are on the board. But Greg, my friend, good to be with you. And just kind of give me your general impressions on this one. I know we were going back and forth at halftime, and it was like, my God, like this could be this. It was looking like it had the potential to be another really, really ugly one on top of a lot of really ugly losses.
Yeah, well, first of all, great job doing your thing in Vegas. I think it's work hard, play hard at all times for the next 9 days there in Sin City. So good on you. It's 49ers and it's Warriors. You're working into the late hours. But, yeah, this was an interesting one because, the sentiment I led with after the Hawks game was, I don't care if the Hawks aren't very good. These are the type of games where if you want to take yourself seriously and save your season, those are the type of games you got to be able to finish and win when they're right there for the taking. And the same goes for tonight. Fortunately for the Warriors, it was a different result. They did take care of it after a really ugly all-around first half. And I just say that as a basketball guy. Like, Brooklyn did not play very well either. I think the Warriors got fortunate that Brooklyn had some uncontested or lightly contested shots that just didn't go down. Cam Thomas shot 4 for 21, and I think he scored 41 when they played at Chase Center the first time. So that was a big difference overall. But look, the bottom line is when things aren't necessarily going your way, it's kind of a trudge through the mud kind of game, race to the finish line. How do you get out of that? Well, you outwork the other team. And I don't know, Mikal Bridges and what he said about the fans at Barclays Center. I mean, man, that was on display. I think the loudest the first half was when Steph hit a deep three late second quarter, and the Warriors took full advantage of that lack of home court advantage for Brooklyn. And guys like Podziemski and Guy Santos and Kuminga, may not have had perfect nights all around, but they really, really worked hard and made it count in that third quarter and down the stretch in the fourth, which is something that is a pleasant surprise for this year, where the Warriors have let a lot of fourth quarters slip away. I think they were actually largely in control for the most part in the final 15 minutes.
Yeah, and look, I said it at the beginning of this road trip. To me, it needed to be 3-0 in the first three. They get to 2-1. They were right there, and all three of these losses that the Warriors have had, since they came back, have been close, just gut punch type losses after the break since the passing of Decky. But so yeah, I mean tonight it's a handle business game. It's a I call it a zero upside game, right? Like if you lose, everything is just horrendous, and if you win, it's like, all right, well that was cute. Now go beat Philadelphia without Embiid, or go beat Philadelphia and Indiana before you come home, and then we'll see where they're at when they play Phoenix and in the week leading up to the break. But all in all, the nightly grind for this team, Greg, is trying to play well enough to where they feel like anything that they do at the trade deadline matters, and also play well enough to where they feel like their season still has meaning following the All-Star break. I think both of those things are in play on a nightly basis. So when you look at the way that the homestand went, 2-2, it's disappointing because of the two losses. I think you look at the 3-3 after the Atlanta and Memphis games, and that's disappointing. But this team's playing a little bit better, and they're finding ways to win, but they're also still finding ways to lose. And it shows you how difficult it really is truly going to be for this team as they're currently constituted to get on a big run. Now, that being said, Kuminga and Podziemski, two players we've talked about a lot, more so Kuminga the last couple weeks, but Kuminga and Podziemski both, I think, continue, Greg, to prove themselves to be keepers.
Yeah, 100%. I think Podziemski has all the intangible factors that you would want if you're Steve Kerr and this organization.
What's the ceiling for him? What's the ceiling for Podziemski, do you think? I mean, and I'll kind of throw that out there to the commenters. Like, what? Because that's something I really haven't thought a lot about. We talk about Kuminga's ceiling a lot, and could it be all-star, superstar? But Podziemski's interesting, I think, because he's a rookie, and you want to give him a little bit of time to develop. But I mean, is he I think at a minimum a rotation player, but is he a starter? Is he like, what's your kind of thoughts on just what he could be? Because there are nights where he looks like, oh, this guy's going to be in the league for a decade plus.
Yeah, ceiling, I definitely would put all-star up there on a winning team. And that doesn't mean I would necessarily throw money at that right now, but look at a guy like Jalen Brunson, who was a really good college player, did a lot of the little things right, very smart guy, huge asset to Dallas. New York signs him to a big contract. Many people thought, oh, well, I like Jalen Brunson and it's a great story. I don't know if that's really worth a big money player in that market. And here he is being a top 5 MVP candidate by just working and working and working and being the type of guy you want in the locker room. So I see a lot of similarities with Podziemski when you look at coming into the league, being comfortable, being a smart player, willing to do all the grit work, and just have the right mentality of being super confident in his abilities, but not reckless on the floor. So in that sense, I think he actually does have a really bright ceiling. He could be someone that is an important piece on winning teams moving forward, whether that's in a Warriors uniform or somewhere else. I'd love to see him in the Bay for as long as I can.
Yeah, and so that's, again, one of the positives for tonight. We talked about the paint points, and if you're not hitting threes, and the Warriors were ice cold from three in this game, what was it? 2 3-point makes in each half for the Warriors in this game to finish with 4. I mean, you could make the case, and we've talked about it a lot, that the Warriors have had some hot shooting games go by the wayside, and they've wasted them. Like tonight was a night where, you don't hit from 3, but yet you still find a way to win. And I know Brooklyn's been in a bad way here of late, and Warrior fans took over Barclays, as they've done a lot. But I feel like for this team, that at times feels like they're success is almost based entirely on how well they shoot from deep. For them to be able to win a game where they're 4 of 22 from 3-point range, I think it's pretty significant. I mean, they got out hit from three by 27 points, but you offset that because you are able to be a plus 34 in terms of points in the paint, and that was the difference in the game.
It really was, and it's surprising because it seems like the Warriors usually are on the short end of those 3-point points. For as much as they do shoot, their perimeter defense has really not been all that impressive, and they've let typical role players who you don't think of lighting at the scoreboard, you get them open looks, and everybody in the NBA is good enough to make high percentage looks that come their way, and the Warriors have really dug themselves into holes. The difference tonight is that they never really dug themselves into a terrible hole, and I got to give them credit for the way they were able to come out of it. You know, it's funny, like the first half, I'm thinking Steve Kerr's got to get a little bit of blame for not necessarily having the guys ready to go after a day off, but then flip that to the other side, and he has to deserve some credit for the way they came out in the second half and just said, all right, like, let's refocus. And I mean, it sounds silly because there's a lot of things that go into a basketball game, but they simply were a lot more focused and played way harder. And that was ultimately one of the big differences and kind of ended up being the nail in the coffin in those final 4-3 minutes when Brooklyn had a little bit of a late push, kind of a last gasp of life. Warriors defense has, and their tendency to foul, which they were doing for a second, putting Cam Thomas at the line, that has allowed teams to get a little bit of life and be like, hey, wait a minute, we're down by 6 points. We just need a couple stops. And tonight, the Warriors didn't really fall into that trap at all. So I think it was fun to see. It wasn't the type of game I was expecting at all when you look at the lineups that were thrown out there, but really cool to see whoever was called upon just answer the call and show that they had confidence to be out there and it wasn't some kind of fluke.
Yeah, it was the Royce O'Neal, Dennis Smith Jr. run for Brooklyn. That would look like it was going to make it. Again, I mean, there were times where you thought this was maybe going to be like, oh my God, like if they, as the Nets were making that little mini run, you're thinking, oh my God, if this game ends up one possession in the final couple of minutes, or they have to go to overtime or something. I mean, there's just been so many games the Warriors should have put away sooner, but not tonight. Warriors get the job done. They earn themselves a victory in Brooklyn, final 109-98. It's Dubs OT with JD, John Dickinson, here on KNBR, streaming on KNBR on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter. Greg Silver on hand as well here on this Monday night. Again, I am in Las Vegas helping to cover the big game, which is coming up on Sunday between the 49ers and the Chiefs, but still staying locked in on all things Golden State Warriors here and still continuing the Dubs OT shows a little bit later this week based on the normal programming schedule. We're changing the programming schedule a little bit. So we're going to be on Wednesday, still TBD, but Thursday we're going to be on right around 9. And then Saturday, our buddy Erwin Kwong in the chat, hoping Greg Silver gets his beer this week at Harmonic. That's going to happen, Erwin. That is going to happen. Greg Silver will be getting his beer at Harmonic on Saturday following.
Just started the credential process today.
Yeah, you're going to be fine. If you started today, you're going to be good to go by Saturday. So yeah, you're going to have my spot there, my little corner table with the great view behind me, and take in the Suns and the Warriors, and I'll connect with you here in Vegas off of that one. And that show we intend to do live right at 8:00. It's not going to be on KNBR, the radio, but we're gonna do that one live here on YouTube and Twitch as we normally do. Following each and every game with our Dubs OT shows. I do understand, and we'll get to this a little bit later, we've got a special Sounds of Silver coming up for the YouTube stream here tonight. Some of the best sound bites from the ball game. I want to get into Klay Thompson not finishing. And I got to be honest, I watched, and we can play it now, we can play it later. Up to you, but I watched Anthony Slater, who was on hand in Brooklyn. He was in the Warriors locker room after the game. I think it was the right call to not play Klay Thompson down the stretch and to keep the group that was rolling with Guy Santos out there. And just everything that he was, bringing to the table, he earned it, frankly. I know some are going to say, well, Klay was worse in the game Saturday night. Why did he get the opportunity to finish that game? And I just don't think there were any better options, to be perfectly honest, in the game on Saturday night, especially after Kuminga and Wiggins found themselves out. Kuminga due to fouling out, and Wiggins was injured right before halftime and was unable to go in the game tonight. I thought Steve Kerr made the right call tonight, but I watched the video with Slater in the locker room, and I mean, it was hard. It was hard to see Klay Thompson so down. Now, I think he attempted to, he attempted to handle it like a pro, but you could tell anytime things are not going well, it's clearly weighing on him at this point. And so tough situation, but I think the right call by Coach Kerr tonight and I think it's going to be the type of tough call as players come back. And we don't know what the Warriors are going to do at the trade deadline, Greg, but as players come back and Steve Kerr has more options in terms of players who can finish games, picking that best five on a night in, night out basis is going to be important. And it may not always be Klay.
It certainly will not always be Klay. And it hurts to say that as someone that's lived in the Bay Area for a long time. I know you've been here for a long time covering the Warriors, all the ups and downs from the 15-win season to the 73-win season. And Klay Thompson has been an essential part of it. There's no doubt about it. So, and it is tough because it's a contract year for Klay Thompson as well. And he and the Warriors, of course, didn't agree on a 2-year, $48 million offer over the offseason. I can't imagine he would get the same offer or anything really close to it come this summer. So it's hard to watch that for Klay. But to flip it back over, I am glad that Steve Kerr stuck with the lineup he did, because there have been a couple times where he's gotten caught on the substitutions and deserves a little bit of blame for some of the Warriors' bad losses down the stretch where the lineup that they have out there doesn't execute. Other times it's not all on him. I think it's just all around horrible execution. I know there's a whole sector of people out there that just kind of love to blame Kerr for anything and everything. I think it's sometimes yes, sometimes no. But tonight you got to give him credit for sticking with Guy Santos, who, look, wasn't perfect. I think defensively was about a half step late sometimes, which led to some fouls and fouls that even led to and ones, and the type of plays you do not want to have when you're protecting a lead and can get a team a chance to rest and get back in it. But at the same time, Klay Thompson wasn't doing anything all that special tonight. And I think they had good things going. It seemed like Draymond, Kuminga, and Steph in particular, those three and the way they could work on offense were just sublime, to use the word from last post game. And then your other two, Podziemski and Guy Santos, were just kind of outworking the Nets roster. And I think in some sense that needs to be valued when your options are limited, right? It's not like, well, we have an Andrew Wiggins on hand and there's more of an upside and he's a better defender than both of these guys. No, he wasn't really there. And he doesn't, you said it for the Hawks game, there weren't really better options. I don't think there were a whole lot of better options tonight. So reward the guys that were just outworking everybody and not just sending the team down a drain trying to protect a lead. Like, the Warriors were never threatened truly by the Nets, and I think you got to value that lineup that was able to hold their own.
Yeah, it's going to be night to night, and I think that's probably the best course of action if this team is going to get on some kind of a run. And look, they're 22-25. I saw in the chat here, PDXRF virtual tie for 11th. Woohoo! Virtual tie for 11th for the Warriors. I brought up my standings. 23-26 for the Rockets, 22-25 for the Warriors. Both a game back of Utah, who's won to get to 25-26. The Lakers have suddenly won 3 in a row, so they're a couple of games over. And then, there's a more significant gap. Warriors are 2.5 out of 9th, 3.5 out of 8th, and 5.5 still out of 6th as they move forward here from Brooklyn on to Philadelphia, where they will next be in action on Wednesday night. So, yeah, I give Kirk credit, but it's tough to watch Klay Thompson be so pained, because here's the thing. That Klay Thompson believes that he is. I mean, it was just reported within the last week and a half that Klay still believes he's a max player. I mean, no, he's not. I mean, I think, but it's got to be hard, because I think, how can he not? I think he still carried forward the facade that he could be that player, even coming off of last year. And you remember how defiant he was when asked about, kind of having a down year. I can't remember who asked him, but somebody asked him about having a down year, and he got pissed. He was like, I made more threes than anybody. I made 300 threes and shot 41%. And, he didn't, in his mind, now, if you watched him play every night, he definitely had a down year by comparison. And look, it's expected as he gets into 33, 34 years old. And so, I mean, but he has to at some point acknowledge and accept the player that he now is, and accept that it's okay. And I think that's the thing. Like, he goes through this cycle of angry to having it reach a boiling point when he doesn't play well, to the point where there almost needs to be a reset, right? He'll lash out. Steve Kerr will say, hey, we had a chat. And then he'll play better, and then he'll relax. And then it's like, rather than just play better and get to the new normal of where Klay Thompson is, he starts to, it starts to link back to, well, I'm a max player. And then the cycle starts all over again. He gets pissed off again. And I feel like we're kind of in that downward spiral right now a little bit, but he just seemed dejected. He just seemed like almost like it was finally hitting home, maybe for him, that he just isn't going to be the guy that he wants to be. And again, he has to at some point accept that and be okay with it being less effective, less often, but while still understanding that he can do things on a lot of nights that help this team win. It's I don't want to say ego or pride, but because he's an all-time great, so it's understandable, and the injuries weighed on him. Like, I understand why. I'm not trying to be flippant about how he feels, right? Like, the things that he'd been through. I mean, I think he would have thought, and we all would have thought, he would still be kind of cruising at this point in his career had he not had the injuries. Kind of like Steph is still, for someone his age, about to be 36 here in a month, talking about Steph, playing at that ultra smooth level. I think we would have thought 5 years ago, before the injury, that Klay was probably going to age pretty gracefully himself. Yeah. And he's not, but he can still be productive. But he can only truly be productive, Greg, if he accepts who he is and accepts the fact and is okay with the fact that it's not going to be there for him on a night in, night out basis.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts for sure, because I like that you talked about Klay thinking he could probably cruise at this age. I remember there were a lot of conversations in the NBA media circle around before the injuries, but when the Warriors, there's questions of like, is Kevin Durant going to leave, and what's the dynasty going to be, and what do you do about the future? And there was a lot of talks about how Draymond Green's game would not age that well, because defending the best players takes a big toll on your body, whereas Klay Thompson would have a game that would age really well. And it's kind of been the other way around, because Klay was so durable and then had two of the worst injuries back to back and missed 941 days. And you all know the story. And now he's kind of at a point where it is a little bit of a cycle. And I agree. And it's tough. That mindset of believing he's still a max player. I think while it's not necessarily true, that resilience and the stubbornness is also something that has made him an all-time great player and had him overcome odds for many years. But at this point, there does need to be a little bit more accepting, because we talked about this on Just Dubs. he's still needed for the team to be effective. It's not kill a Klay or number 2 option that's going to put up 25 points a night and shoot over 40% from 3 that's needed, but Klay is still has value for the roster. I think the games that where he plays the best is when he's a lot more patient. He's looking for pick and rolls with Trace Jackson Davis. I actually think he did a better job of not forcing shots tonight, although he wasn't amazing overall. But I think when he's not just forcing his way back into the game and playing frustrated, that's when his value shows. And it's not like he has no value to the team. He's just clearly nowhere near the player that he once was and still aspires to be.
It's John Dickinson and Greg Silver. It's Dubs OT with JD and Silver here for KNBR, the sports leader. Warriors win over the Nets, 109-98. Let's dig into some of the chat here on YouTube. Irwin, Warriors had 10 turnovers in the first half, only 3 in the second half. I'm looking at the final number. Yeah, 3 in the second half for the Warriors to end up with 13. 13's that's an A++ game. Leading rebounder, regulator chiming in. Leading rebounder, Podziemski. Yeah, Podziemski's got a knack for getting to the ball, and he's a hustler. He gets after it. Yeah, Kuminga. I like Kuminga having 10. I like Draymond having 10. But yeah, Podziemski, he takes charges, and for a guy his size, he rebounds the ball very well. Kendall Porter, Kuminga is that guy. I think what we're finding is there are a lot of teams that just can't hang with Kuminga when he gets ahead of steam and starts rolling and getting to the basket. Tonight, you saw it manifest itself a lot in terms of fouls. And I think the Warriors are finding the balance a little bit more lately, Greg, of, Kuminga's a willing shooter, right? Whether it's at the basket or otherwise, like he's got a high opinion of his offensive game. And as long as it's going to the paint, the Warriors, to get through a regular season, you do need guys, and especially this Warriors team that's been so void of finding a second scorer, you do need guys that are willing to look to get their own and can be efficient doing it. And I think that's been the needle that's sort of been thread with Kuminga over the last month, basically, is the Warriors need the scoring and they're not getting it from other places. And he's more than willing to step in and take the shots if there are going to be shots to be had. You hope most of them are in the paint. I love the fact that Kuminga didn't take a single 3 tonight, even though it was 9 of 18. But he offset the 9 of 18 by getting to the free throw line 12 times and knocking down 10 of those 12. So I like Kuminga's shot chart when it's a lot in the paint and when he's getting to the free throw line and he's able to knock down the free throws. I'm looking at Kuminga's shot chart here, and forgive me, it's taken a little time to get brought up, but because I always love looking at the Kuminga shot chart when he's rolling. And yeah, I'm looking at it tonight in the paint, 8 of 13 for Kuminga. Out of the paint, it was 1 of 5 for Kuminga. And there were some misses, frankly, in the paint, but basically he hit just the one shot from outside the paint. He missed some of those pull-ups on the interior between the free throw line and the bucket. But the makes, I mean, it was a dunk fest really for Kuminga when he was cooking tonight. But it's 4 dunks basically, and 2 more right at the rim, and then 2 other ones from there, and then a whole bunch of free throws. So not by Kuminga's recent standard as efficient, but again, if you get to the line as much as he did, you offset that and you're still extremely efficient.
Yeah, I have a list of my favorite stats from tonight that I put together after the game, and my favorite one was Jonathan Kuminga, 10 of 12 from the free throw line, because I love the 10 and I love the 12. Getting to the free throw line, I think Irwin had a great comment, if I can find it. Here we go, talking about it did prevent the Nets from building any rhythm to close the game. It's like you've seen it work against the Warriors so many times, right, where they're the ones that have issues not fouling, and it slows the game down, and it's exactly what happened with the Lakers. And it's happened with many other teams too, where it's just like, oh, they have a lead and they have momentum and they're running downhill. And now these fouls just make it so, okay, we're going to stop the game every 25 seconds and kind of stand there. And then the other team catches their breath. And then they're able to just get a few points by chipping away at the lead. Jonathan Kuminga made them pay in that very respect tonight. And if you can shoot over 80% on free throws for Kuminga for a game, I'll take that every time. I'm not expecting him to be a 87% free throw shooter at this point in his career. But if we can get
75,
over 80% out of him,
even.
Yeah, no, over 80 is incredible to me, and I'll always take that. And he made the ones in the fourth quarter when it counted. I also love the Podziemski 11 rebounds stat, 16 team offensive rebounds. How about this one, JD? Zero fouls for Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah, I think Podziemski frustrated Claxton. To be honest, like I think Claxton was getting pissed off that Podziemski was kind of handing it to him. And that's what leads to the flagrant 2 and Claxton getting himself run.
Podziemski absolutely frustrated him. And I think that's probably why he and Guy Santos were left out on the floor, because they were just sort of being a nuisance to a Nets team that was going through the motions a little bit. And again, 0 fouls for Kuminga is great. Podziemski had 38 minutes. And then Draymond Green was plus 11, another one of my favorite numbers, just to further illustrate the impact he's had on the defensive side, of course, but also being a facilitator on offense. He was really making a point to get Kuminga the ball in the fourth, and it was working.
How about Draymond on the Claxton flagrant 2? Under control.
Yeah.
Didn't come after Claxton, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking. It's small. I'm kind of watching it back right now, but like Draymond was, there was. I know it's not Rudy Gobert. I know it's not Yusuf Nurkic, but Draymond was pretty composed in that particular situation.
He did immediately call for the review, which I just thought was funny, because he's like, that's what I do.
That's better than going and putting Claxton in a chokehold. So I think hey, it's all about progress, right? It's all about progress. Andis Brown, man, the Nets have no leaders on that team, no grit. Claxton lost his composure, and the team folded right after. They need a leader. Yeah, they've been void of. I mean, when's the last time the Brooklyn Nets had a leader? You don't have to answer that.
What was that team that
when
made
they were
the
New
playoffs?
Jersey, when they were the new
D'Angelo Russell
when they were the
All-Star year? That was fun.
I was going to go all the way back to like when they made the finals with Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson and Kenyon Martin. That was a little not before your time, but you probably don't remember those teams playing live. Maybe I don't know. They made it to back-to-back finals.
It was before my time.
Yeah, back-to-back finals, and what that would have been 2002 and 2003 for the Nets. So yeah, I'm trying. I mean, none of the Durant, Kyrie, James Harden, like none of those. I mean, I guess you could say when they traded for all the Celtics guys back, about 10 years ago, but those guys were basically washed at that point. Those guys were leaders when they were on the Celtics. That was kind of, but not so much maybe as Nets, but we digress. Let's see, keeping it moving here. Douglas Mike's got to sign or trade for more shooters in the offseason to surround Kuminga. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. If Kuminga's going to be your starting 4 next year, and Draymond's then that means Draymond's got to be your starting 5. I know people are going to think I'm when I say this, I'm coming down on Kuminga, but if the Warriors, and I'm not at all, it's either Kuminga's going to have to learn to play 3. I know I say that every show, and I don't think they're to the point. Maybe I think that's an off-season question as terms of his development, but I don't think we're getting an answer to that in the next 2 months. Although we'll see if Wiggins is going to be out, continue to be out. But if you got to figure out is Wiggins going to be around still? if Kuminga's at the 4. And if Wiggins is going to be around, then they're the 3-4. Well, if they're the 3-4, then Draymond's the 5. If you go get a big, if you go get a big, I think you're starting to, maybe Kuminga ends up being a super sub. And again, people are going to be like, oh, there goes JD again. But even if that's the case, you still would have to figure out, that would be because you have a more legitimate, a big that's not on the roster currently. But it would also mean you have
pregame.
You have to fix the 2-guard
Slater
spot.
said.
I did not actually.
It was Anthony Slater's Twitter, and it was Steve Kerr saying Draymond Green he sees him as primarily a 5.
I did see that. I actually did see that. Well, for this team to function with the guys that they have, he has to be. See, that's the thing. I've seen a lot of this the last week. Warriors still need a big. They need a big. Draymond, and look, I think it's fair to say that Draymond playing the 5 is, not sustainable over an 82-game season. We can have that conversation. But if Draymond's got to play the 4, then unless they're going to play Kuminga at the 3, which they've been completely unwilling to do for the most part, he did get some time there tonight, though. He did get some time there tonight with Guy Santos out there down the stretch. And if you're going with Steph and Pajemski and Guy Santos and Kuminga and I guess technically Kuminga's the 3 there, right? Or maybe it's Guy. Maybe it is, but
see, that one, it just like blurs for me because I did notice that lineup, but I'm like, well, which one is it?
Well, Kerr said he only plays Kuminga at the 3 if you have a bona fide, like Saric basically was the one player. And I guess since Guy was the Saric replacement, that would technically make Kuminga the 3. Anyway, again, I'm not coming down. I think they are growing to really love Kuminga as a 4. The point I'm getting at is if you add another big, Draymond's still going to start, and Wiggins is a true 3 and Kuminga's not. So at that point, Kuminga may go back to, regardless though of whether that happens, because that's a little bit of projecting. Let's just say Draymond's the 5, Kuminga's the 4, Wiggins is the 3, or if they make a move on Wiggins, regardless, Klay Thompson. The other thing about Klay Thompson, Greg, is I think by the day it's looking more and more like he ain't coming back. Like it just like, and look, maybe he has an unbelievable 2 months. Relating it back to the comment, they do need to add shooting. But I think the spot where you need to add shooting, ironically, is the 2 spot. And because you're not getting it consistently enough from Klay, it could be a wing player. It could be a 3. But regardless of how you cut it up in the lineups and the positions and all that, this team does need more shooting next year.
Oh, I think 100%, because you don't want to rely on Jonathan Kuminga or Andrew Wiggins if they're, Wiggins is still on the roster. I don't think you can rely on either one of them to be a consistent and reliable shooter, right? And Pajemski hasn't been that either, as much as I love what he's done this rookie season. I think you're spot on there, JD. And every time I clip little bits from your shows and kind of put them in the end package recently, I had one where you're like, all signs are pointing to Klay Thompson not coming back next year. And I had to grab it and just like, man, that hits.
It does. And I know we're going to hear from Klay in Sounds of Silver, which we'll do here coming up in the next couple of minutes. I do want to run through and we'll do some fun with numbers. I did want to run through a few more of these. Fozzie, Kyle Shanahan was a little buzzed tonight. LOL. Cheers. That was making the rounds. And I don't know. That was making the round. Like, people were kind of wondering. I popped and just so you know, not to go too Niners on you here on Dubs OT, but inside the stadium, there are like 10 risers, basically big podiums where the top 10 headlining players are at, plus the head coach. So Kyle was at one. There were a bunch, Kittle, McCaffrey, Brock, all these guys in. So you kind of make the rounds to each one. And then if you can grab a player that's just kind of standing on the field in his sweats, you can grab a player there, maybe do a short interview or something like that. But so I started with Kyle because there were all the questions about the field conditions and UNLV and all of that. And Kyle seemed good, fine, whatever. But then I check back in at the end because people are texting me like, is he a little loose? And I'm like, I don't think so. But I think it was more this. I think it's more the 60 minutes up there under the bright lights. I mean, that's a long time to be doing a media availability. But yeah, you never know. Maybe there was a little. Maybe there was a little something going on there. But yeah, cheers to you, my friend. Cheers to you, Greg.
Hey, buzzed or not, I think seeing Kyle Shanahan just be a little bit bubbly on a Super Bowl week.
Yeah, he was. I could, you know what? I could totally see Kyle Shanahan, and I mean this. I'm not no negative. I could totally see him being like, you know what? Tonight's a joke. Like we got 6 days till the Super Bowl. Maybe I had one before I went out there, one or two before. Like, who cares? No big deal. And again, I'm not saying he did or didn't, but if he did, so what? Like tonight among media availabilities and the grand scheme of Super Bowl week, like whatever. Well, it's no big deal. Irwin, Warriors definitely more size. Yeah, I don't disagree. Fozzie, it's been reported that the Nets have received offers, multiple first rounders for Bridges. Dubs can't match that. Yeah, I don't see Bridges I don't see Bridges being a fit for the Warriors, especially with the emergence of Kuminga, to be honest. Because Bridges is a guy that would play the three, but would also want to shift to four. Like I don't know if you're believing in Kuminga, I don't know about going and getting Bridges. Joe H. Everyone on the bench was cheering for their teammates in the fourth quarter except Klay. JD, did you notice that, Greg? I did not notice that in my speed watching. But I don't think Klay's not rooting for his teammates. It may just be tough for him right now to process the fact that he's not out there. But I don't think he's.
It's yes to both. I did notice it a little bit. I didn't think much of it.
Yeah, I don't think that's a big deal. And he did respond to it appropriately in the post game. Wendell Carter could be a good fit. But the Magic don't need CP3. I don't think they need cap help. Wiggins wouldn't be a good fit. Magic either need an elite 2 or 5. Yeah, I think Wendell Carter would be a nice fit for the Warriors. Like I think he would be somebody because he's a different, he's a big that can shoot the 3, can post up a little bit. Like I think that's the type of skill set that the Warriors would be looking for from this big. And then Robert chiming in, the next 6 games or so will determine the season. We've been saying that, but Robert adds, especially when you consider the caliber of opponents they are playing, no slouches. Yeah, Philly, even without Embiid, Indiana, Phoenix, they've got Utah a couple of times, and nobody is playing better than the Clippers. Nobody playing better than the Clippers since that afternoon game. And they won tonight in Atlanta, 149-144. But that afternoon game in December, right when we started Dubs OT and Just Dubs here on KNBR, the Clippers are 31-5, I think, since that afternoon when they had the big comeback against the Warriors. The Clippers could win the championship this year, Greg.
It's crazy because I did not think that James Harden. Yeah, I didn't think the James Harden trade was going to work at all. I felt bad for Russell Westbrook because he had a bit of a career revival, and then he took the unselfish volunteering of going to the bench. And all of a sudden, then I was like, oh, the Clippers are kind of hot. And then they've just never cooled off since then at all. And it's pretty remarkable to watch. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, no, I no doubt about it. They're different. Like this is not the Clipper. Like this is the best. This is the best the Clippers have been by far at any point in the Kawhi Paul George era. Like they look like a legitimate title contending team. Right.
They're the only team that should be like so pumped about the 65 game minimum rule. It's like save their season.
Yeah, it's forced. It's funny. I said that day. I'm like, the Clippers are amazing when they are forced to play hard. Like, and they're forced to play everybody. Like it's incredible. But yeah, they've been playing very well. Let's see, just kind of running through the chat here. I want to make sure we give everybody their due. Klay can easily develop more of a DeMar DeRozan mid-range game. He can knock down some mid-range jumpers, but he's not the kind of guy that's going to sort of create and pound it and set himself up and get to the free throw line. That's kind of where DeRozan is. Dion, the end comes for everyone. Klay, a Hall of Famer, and we should appreciate his past. Wholeheartedly agree with that, but the present and the future is as a bench player. Yeah, we shall see. I sort of think that's the next phase here, Greg, is, Klay has to first accept that he's not a max player. I do think we're starting to get down that road again of is he going to have to accept that maybe he's a bench player, a sixth man, super sub, whatever it is. But I think you got to have a bona fide better player than him on the roster if he's going to do that for the Warriors. And I don't think the Warriors, I don't see Klay Thompson accepting the fact that, Brandon Podziemski's a better player than me year 2. I'm coming off the bench. Now, if you go get somebody that's done some stuff in the league and that guy's playing the 2, then maybe Klay Thompson would accept that. But this is going to be a fascinating offseason, and I think an uncomfortable offseason for Klay and for the Warriors as far as, he shops himself to the league. The league says you're not a max guy. He's like, okay, shit. Oh, excuse me. We're okay because we're not on the radio, right?
No radio.
No radio, so we're okay. Oop, apologies, guy. That one actually slipped. But I know we're not on the radio. So don't accuse me of being Kyle Shanahan now. Come on. I'm not. I just got back from the opening night. But no, Klay goes bleep. I don't have the offers I thought. And then it becomes, do I go back to the Warriors or not? And the Warriors go, well, you need to come off the bench. And will he? That's another level, I think, of acceptance that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting to think too. You've seen a lot of players who were once all-stars and had reached that point in their career come off the bench for Steve Kerr. David Lee was a bit of a different case because he wasn't a piece that stayed with the team, but Stephen Curry's done it in the playoffs, mind you. Draymond Green has done it in the playoffs. I don't think Andrew Wiggins has ever come off the bench for Steve Kerr. Kevin Durant didn't, even when he had that calf injury leading to the Achilles. And Klay has never done it. So, and Chris Paul's done it, obviously, this year. So it's an interesting dynamic as to, I wonder why Klay Thompson has never not come off the bench, including when he was just coming back from injury.
Yeah, no, I think it's an ego and a stature thing. As far as like, I shouldn't have to do that. I mean, Draymond's done it. Steph's done it. They've both done it in playoff games, but I feel like Klay's a different animal when it comes to that. Like he's prideful. I think that's something that means something to him. And I think it's a statement that he's not what he used to be. And I think he has a more difficult time accepting it than either Draymond or Steph do in terms of all of that. There was a funny one from Dollar Bill I wanted to read about Kuminga. What do you mean, even though it's 9 of 18? Talking about Kuminga's line. That's 50% from the field, even though I know what you mean, LOL. Okay. Well, yeah. I would prefer Kuminga to be 9 of 13 or 9 of 14. Not like Kuminga takes a lot of shots. So I think that's, I don't like Kuminga needing to take 18 shots to get his buckets when most of them are in the paint. And I think tonight you saw some paint misses, and that's fine. I mean, that's going to happen, but I'm just saying, and again, it's 9 of 18 is fine. 9 of 18 is not bad, but I think Kuminga's at his best when it's more like 9 of 14, in that range. But the free throws, if you're going to get 10 makes at the free throw line, then 9 of 18 is totally fine. Because it levels off. And I agree with the commenter that said that the free throws helped prevent any momentum. Let's do a Sounds of Silver before we call it a night here. Dubs OT with JD and Greg Silver here for KNBR, the sports leader. What do you got tonight, Greg? Let's just run through. I think you said you had 4 pieces of sound. Let's just run through all 4 of them real quick. We'll do some fun with numbers, and we'll call it a night here.
All right, perfect. I guess the order will go in. You know what? We're going to start with the Klay Thompson in the locker room. The audio quality is a little bit mixed because it was just coming from Anthony Slater's cell phone, but we're going to give it a run here. And he's asking Klay about not closing, and Klay admits that it's hard to not be the player that he once was. So here we are.
Obviously going to be a story. I mean,
it's all good. These guys played great. He played great. BP, Jonathan. At the end of the day, winning trumps all.
Is this an adjustment period for you a little bit? I mean, he's done it in a few games, obviously.
Yeah. You kidding me? Go from one of the best players. It's hard for anybody. I'll be honest with you. Very hard.
Does it matter, Klay? I mean, obviously you've had so many great games. Does it matter if just having a game or two in a row where things go well to have things flip the other way?
Yeah, absolutely.
And is the way the last year went sort of something you can...
Definitely gives me confidence to keep going.
Last time I talked to you about not losing, you were pretty upset to feel like you...
Yeah, I've accepted it. Can be mad, but I'm not gonna be mad. I'm happy for these young guys, honestly. And yeah, we won.
I mean, was he borderline getting emotional there? I mean, I didn't totally notice that on the first read or on the first view because I was in a little bit of a noisier environment and didn't totally get the full effect. But I mean, it looked like he was about to kind of tear up a little bit, or was starting to maybe tear up a little bit. Wow.
Oh, I for sure sensed him get into an emotional state, and that's tough because I think he was genuine in that he was happy for his teammates, and it wasn't being angry at anybody else. It was probably just rather being
that was not that was not like that whole taking an hour back from it and watching it now as you played it on the screen, like that was much more of a not anger, but like he was like sad. He was like, it was like, I mean, I don't want, it was like, damn, like this is like, I'm just like how the mighty have fallen, kind of a thing. But I do agree, legitimately happy for the others. I don't think there's much doubt about it. Wow. That was really tough to watch. And I know we didn't play there was a portion after where Draymond popped up. We didn't play that part because there was an expletive as far as that part. But I want to make sure Draymond referenced not finishing Game 5 of the Finals, and then said who the bleep cares? Which again, I think that's
Game 4.
That's the right attitude. What's that?
In Boston, Game 4.
Was it Game 4 or Game 5? I guess it was Game 4. Yeah, it would have been Game. Yeah. It would have been Game 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That was the game that Looney came off the bench.
That was the game where they were given the FU Draymond.
Yeah.
At TD Garden, and he admitted he was allowing it to affect it.
Yeah.
What else you got, Greg? Let's keep it rolling here.
Yeah, here's Steve Kerr talking about Klay not closing, and it was a couple minutes. I'm playing the second half of it. Just saying that it's a lot of ups and downs. We've had 3 games in 4 nights, and that he's really proud of the young guys that stepped up as well.
Yeah, he's played a lot, and this was our 3rd and 4 nights, and so it's it's all part of it. But everybody has struggles during the season, and you just have to play through them. And I thought he did a good job tonight moving the ball and on the glass, and his minutes were good, and so he contributed. And it's just there's a spotlight on him because of how great he is, because of the career he's had. So I don't think that should be the story tonight. The story should be we won a game on the road, against a team that's been playing well, and we had multiple guys step in, with Lester and Moses and Guy. Like that's the story of tonight's game is, those guys coming back and really contributing to a win.
Yeah, I'm with Kerr there. I mean, but the reality is that's not the story on a night like tonight, because the win alone in the grand scheme of things doesn't mean a whole lot. It means you're 22-25 and you're still trying to fight the uphill climb just to get back to 500. You're still on the outside looking in. And the reality is a future Hall of Famer not finishing, especially one that's shown it to be, to hit him as hard as it's hit Klay, that is a bigger story.
Oh yeah, I think there's no doubt about it. But at the same time, I mean, if you're Steve Kerr, I think not drawing any more attention to it than is already going to be there is probably the right approach to take from the podium. I'm sure it's a really tough thing to navigate for him behind closed doors.
One quick one from Robert in the chat. JD, how much stock do you buy into Dallas and Indiana being interested in Wiggins? I think they both probably are interested. I'm trying to figure out who off the Indiana or Dallas rosters that the Warriors would be taking back in that kind of a deal. And that's something we can get into here maybe a little bit on Wednesday as we lead up to the trade deadline. But I just don't like, to me, you would have to be willing to take somebody back that isn't on a great contract either. And I feel like it's almost the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. I know Wiggins is deserved, he's garnered a lot of heat, deservedly so. He struggled, and he's trying to snap his way out of it. But I think you could find yourself, you take somebody back with a similar contract to Wiggins, and he either doesn't fit the way the Warriors operate or is worse. You could wind up in a really bad way if you do that. What about Tim Hardaway Jr.? Tim Hardaway Jr. is interesting. I kind of like Tim Hardaway Jr. But again, it would be one more year. The Mavs would be 3 more years, right? I think 3 more years after this year for Wiggins. And so it's a matter of, if the Warriors are sending Wiggins, plus if there's a 2-year difference, then the Warriors are going to be the team that's going to have to add something to that deal because of the difference in contract. So I think that was Andis Brown who chimed in with that one. We got to stop trying to trade Wiggins, says Douglas Mikes. He's one of the few players that guards players. Yeah, like Trey, Fox, etc. I've been saying that. I wouldn't be looking to trade Wiggins at this point, but you do need to balance this thing out in other ways if you decide that you are going to keep it moving forward. All right, couple more pieces of sound here on Sounds of Silver. Dubs OT, JD, and Greg Silver here for KNBR.
All right, we'll first go with a shorter one. Pajemski talking about Guy Santos and giving him high praise, and then we'll end with Steph on a little bit more of a fun and wholesome note. So here is Pajemski.
He's the reason why we won the game. Without him, we probably lose, quite honestly. When he came in the second quarter, he gave us some life, and then when he came in the third, and you could just feel his energy and his presence both offensively and defensively, and I think that's why Coach decided to rock with him and finish the game with him.
There you go. Look at Pajemski giving Guy. I mean, again, file that in things I didn't think I would see on a Dubs OT show. You got Brandon Pajemski, who led the Warriors in rebounding, praising Steve Kerr for playing Guy Santos down the stretch over Klay Thompson in a game that the Warriors ended up winning. I didn't have that one on the Big O card for February 5th.
What were the odds on that? If we're going to talk betting here, like plus 1,500? No, more than that. Plus like 15,000. It's ridiculous.
That's pretty. That's pretty wild. When you think
by the way,
about it.
Shout out to Pajemski for being like the model podium speaker. Like we know he's going to be there every night.
Yeah, no, Pajemski, first team all world in terms of podium time. That's a great point. All right, let's wrap it up. Okay, I was looking. The reason I stammered there, I know the Warriors have a bunch of February birthdays. For some reason, I thought maybe Klay Thompson's birthday was today. It's actually Thursday. And then I thought, well, is Kevon Looney's birthday today? Kevon Looney's birthday is actually tomorrow. So we got a couple of birthdays coming up. And Andrew Wiggins, if he remains on the team, I'm kind of a birthday guy, Greg. But yeah, Looney's tomorrow. So happy birthday to Loon. And then
you're an other people's birthday guy, because when I talked about your birthday on the show, you were like, "Oh, stop."
Yeah, it's fine. I've started counting backwards on my birthdays.
All right, fair enough.
No, you're still counting forwards. I've started counting backwards. Yeah, everybody. Yeah, Douglas Mikes, Looney turning 40. Would you believe Kevon Looney's turning 28? 28. Greg, you really were like, what? Like you really forgot. Like Looney's 28.
Nah, because 2 years ago I was on a podcast during the playoff run, and one of my friends said Kevon Looney's 26 and he plays like he's 38, and I say that with love. So his age is kind of always stuck in my head.
Well, when was your birthday again, Greg?
April.
Okay, yeah, we do birthdays.
My birthday is the last day of the Warriors regular season. So,
your birthday's April 14th?
Correct.
Oh, that's my mom's birthday's April 14th. There
we go. Easy to remember. I wonder if our gift will be continuing Dubs OT into the postseason.
That's nice. That's great. That's okay. That my mom's gonna love you now, Greg. That's.
I hope she already did.
She did. She's like, who's this Greg? He's pretty talented. But wow, that's pretty crazy. It's funny. I always say, I was going to say this. I swear I was going to say this before you told me. I was going to say, there's always somebody I know that has there's always two people I know that have the same birthday, like almost no matter what the birthday is. So yeah. Well, that's awesome. Final piece of sound. What do we got? Did you say Steph?
Steph Curry from the court, kind of just talking about not taking any of it for granted. And I think that's kind of a nice note to end sound on after all the Klay Thompson sadness. So here we go.
You've been in this league for very long. You have so many fans that come out. What was it like to play at Barclays? We saw you kind of engage with the fans in the fourth quarter where the opponent in their arena is cheering you on.
God is good in the sense of what basketball has allowed me to do and experience. We work so hard to play at this level, like you said, been in this game for a very long time. And to have this type of response on the road, I never take it for granted. It's something that is truly special. And at a certain point, the shoes are going to get hung up and you'll miss it. So I love this environment. I love, performing. And like I said, I don't ever take it for granted.
It doesn't look like it's getting hung up anytime soon with the points, the numbers, and stats that you're putting up. I got to ask you really quickly, because you ranked Barclays Center as one of your top 2 places to eat popcorn. Were you able to get popcorn here tonight?
The locker room attendant who's been here in the visitors' locker room for probably a decade or more, he always takes care of me. So I didn't do any pregame, but I got a nice bucket back there waiting for me, and it's nice to have that celebrating a win.
Big shout out to Tiny, who gets you the popcorn. Thanks, Steph. Congrats on the win.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
All right, good stuff from the Yes Network. And Megan Triplett, who used to be with the Grizzlies, moved over to Brooklyn. She's very good sideline reporter. And yeah, I'm a big popcorn guy, Greg. Something you didn't know about me. I'm big. I got that with Steph, man. Love popcorn.
Love it. Okay, good. I'm just distracted by Erwin saying I need a chocolate cake shot for my birthday. All right. Yeah, I can get behind that.
Wow, that's a little sweet. That might be a little sweet. Although you're young, you can handle the calorie component of it. You're young enough to just handle that. That's. I'll bet it's great. It's a little sweet for me.
I don't know if we're taking 5 of them, but one for sure will work.
Well, one for each year. No, okay. If that were the case, your boy wouldn't be around any longer.
Well, if my girlfriend was on the show, she'd say, so what is that, 5?
Exactly. Not old enough to drink. Good stuff there from Steph. Greg, let's call it a night on that note. Good stuff from you. Appreciate everybody in the chat. I may or may not be about to go have an adult beverage here in Vegas. But we're going to reconvene at some point, either Wednesday night or Thursday morning. I know, Greg, you've got a little bit of a tough schedule on Wednesday. There's a back-to-back, so we're going to figure out Wednesday into Thursday. We may do a trade deadline type stream as well, in lieu of a full post-game stream on Wednesday. But we're working through Wednesday. There's some logistics with some of my responsibilities in Vegas and some of Greg's responsibilities back in San Francisco. But we will have one for you on Thursday for sure, and we're going to have one for you live right around 8 o'clock Saturday after the Dubs take on the Phoenix Suns back at Chase, and Greg's going to be at Harmonic Brewing. So we appreciate the folks at Harmonic for having us out. Greg, appreciate you, my man. Be safe. Enjoy the rest of the night. We'll go ahead and podcast this for everybody who wants to get it later. And enjoy the rest of the week. And we will talk to you Wednesday, hopefully. If not Wednesday, Thursday for sure. It's Dubs OT, JD, Greg Silver, KNBR, the sports leader. Peace.